Right. We've got the beautiful image of our Blessed Mother as our mother. And then we're talking about a really tough topic, spiritual warfare. I mean, those two words can be a little scary, Father.
They can be, but when you realize that Our Lady is always there leading us into battle and directing us, it brings a calming effect upon our hearts, or at least hopefully it should. I know whenever I've been most anxious about anything, I know that every time I call upon Our Lady, she not only calms me, but she gives me the direction and the counsel that I need to carry on with whatever it is that I'm engaged in at the time.
Well, Father, can you give us some examples of spiritual warfare?
Spiritual warfare can come on many different levels. We usually find the intensity of the battle increasing the closer we are doing whatever it is that the Lord asks of us. So if sometimes we find ourselves engaged in spiritual warfare that's intense, it can be very indicative of the fact that we're doing what God wants. And the evil one would not want us to succeed at whatever it is that we're doing, especially if in some way it's going to give God glory. So the warfare basically is all of those events, all those things that interfere with us doing from what God wants. For example, you may, during the course of a day, have an inspiration that you're supposed to call a friend. Maybe someone who's been sick, you haven't talked to them for a while. But then you're interrupted by the things that occur within the family, within your job. And at the end of the day, when you go to sleep, or perhaps are preparing to sleep, you remembered that, oh, you're supposed to call this friend. And it may have turned out that that friend needed you specifically at that time, but because of all the distractions, which can occur in everyone's life, it prevented you from doing that. And we all know that sometimes when we're most down, or perhaps depressed or worried, that it only takes a word or two from a person that we care about, maybe even someone we don't even know. It might even be something as simple as a song on the radio where the Lord is communicating His love to us, how important that is. So even in the little things, the evil one can enter in to prevent those graces and prevent that goodness from coming through us to that person that might be helpful at that moment.
The comment you just made about even a song on the radio just hits home that God really is trying to show us His love in every moment of the day. It's just, are we listening?
That's right. God is always communicating Himself to us, even in the simple things. You don't have to go anywhere outside of the realm of nature to find God communicating Himself. In fact, the early church fathers talk about coming to know God in the very simple things that we find outside of ourselves, like that which we find in creation, the sky and the sun and silence. And the very busyness of the world actually is and can be an attack in and of itself on our desire to not only know God but to love Him. That busyness can keep us, can encroach on that silence that sometimes is very necessary for hearing God speak in our lives. So what we may be thinking we're doing in terms of being busy, like St. Martha, the Lord often calls us to be more like Mary, which is very contemplative and just being still.